Well, my game was cancelled yesterday due to the COVID situation, so we're going to talk about the list I was going to field today. It's 1,000 Suns, 2,000 points. Now, Kairos here is going to oversee the video for us. Right, I've got the list here. I've taken some pictures and some screenshots of this list as well. You'll see it popping up during the video. Right, but first of all, let me just unplug this. Right. First of all, let me just say, right, this whole thing is a Brigade Detachment. I wanted to see if I could make a Brigade Detachment under the new rules. The answer was yes, I can. See, the Brigade Detachment is 4 command points to actually field, but it's actually, I'd regard it as the ultimate test as to whether your army is ready for 40k, because if you can field a Brigade Detachment, then you can usually field a balanced force. So that's the acid test. Anyway, this, I started out with 12 command points. I ended up with 6 after everything. And the reason why was because, first of all, I get -4 for the Brigade Detachment, -1 for Relics of the 1,000 Suns, -1 for Magister, which basically makes Warlord out of one of my sorcerers. It's not really a Warlord, but you treat him as one. And that left me with 6. I'm also decided to go purely with the Cult of Magic. That's from the Ritual of the Damned, page 81. As for powers, this was more of a shooty power type thing than anything else. I decided not to go for the Alpha Strike thing where you beam them all across the board, although I did include elements of that. This was more death by magic, you know, this particular army. I started out with Smite, then Astral Blast, which is a power that comes with the Cult of Magic. Everybody gets Smite and that one in my thing, so that's 2 powers they all get, which means I've got 2 attack spells, and they can both be cast very easily as well. I've got Zeech's Firestorm, which I believe I give to Ahriman usually. Temporal Manipulation, Infernal Gaze, and what's your one? Weaver of Fates. Now, I'll let you look them up, right? Because they've all got their own unique powers and stuff like that. Generally speaking, though, this is, you know, kind of a dark side attack thing. You know, the Emperor fighting Luke. Feel the power of the dark side, that kind of thing. Now, if we go down stratagems, there's a long list here of stratagems. It's just, most of them listed just in case I need them. Right, now we've got Infernal Fusillade, Yoken Automata, Risen Rubik, that is a teleport one, remember. Sorcerer's Infusion, Indomitable Foes, the Depths of the Materialum. If I remember right, that one's the Councils on Perils of the Warp for a point. The Great Sorcerer, Fire Frenzy, Demon Forge, Coruscating Beam. I think that's 2 points. The beam passes between the 2, killing anything in between. Cannibalistic Focus. That adds 1 point, I believe, to a power if there's 2 other sorcerers nearby. Relics of the 1,000 Suns, Blasphemous Machines. That's a +1 point or +1 attack. Remember, you only get maximum +1 now in 9th edition. Warp Flame Gargoyles. Now, it specifically states you can't use that with Hellbrutes, but it doesn't say you can't use it with Defilers. So yeah, right, I took that one because I figured my Defiler's going to have some fun with that one, because it's a vehicle. The Defiler is a vehicle, and that only applies to vehicles. Hellbrook's a vehicle too, but it's specifically denied. It says Veterans of the Long War, Webway Infiltration, that's another teleport thing. Soul Flare, Flesh Change, Baleful Vortex, that's a second attack basically, you know. So we call it a psychic attack, shall we? Because it is basically, it's a second psychic attack with the Baleful Vortex power, with a Vortex Beast. And Cycle of Slaughter, that's a Xango one basically, right? Anyhow, the forces, we start off with Ahriman, Now, Ahriman, the Exalted Sorcerer, and the Exalted Sorcerer on disc are my command detachment. Now, Ahriman is usually he's usually quite powerful and he's used for zapping things. You know, I usually make him quite, you know, offensive. In this particular case, he's got Smite, Astral Blast, Infernal Gaze, Glamour of Zeech, Zeech's Firestorm, and Prescience. Did I have one too many there? Two of them is allowed automatically, then I think he gets 3, so what's he got 4? That might have been a mistake on my part. The Exalted Sorcerer, that's the one on disc, he flies around zapping things, he's really there to kill, right? He's got Smite, Astral Blast and Infernal Gaze. I do, by the way, like turning characters into, well, enemy characters into spawn. I do like doing that. Right, anyway, Exalted Sorcerer, right, that's Smite, Astral Blast, Prescience, he's the one who should have had Prescience, and Glamour of Zeech. He's the defensive. He stands next to the Defiler and buffs him. Right, he also buffs anybody else nearby that needs it. So the way I do it is you've got Ahriman, he's more of agent provocateur, he goes around doing his thing. The Exalted Sorcerer charges on at high speed, getting in the face of the enemy. And the normal Sorcerer, he's defensive, he's on the back line. Then we move down to 4 squads of Rubik Marines. Now these 4 squads of Rubik Marines we have here, they're all exactly the same. Now, the reason for taking Xangos seems to go out the window at the moment because, you know, whilst Rubik Marines are cheap, they're cheaper than Xangos. Xangos are quite expensive. 10 Xangos, you know, are, what are they? 105 points, where 5 Rubik Marines are 98. That used to be 96. Now, you might think, well, you know, you get 10, but Rubik Marines are a lot more survivable. They can take a lot more damage and they can repair themselves a lot better. You know, you get all kinds of things that only apply to Rubik Marines, for example, that don't apply to Xangos. Now, this is a standard bolt gun with warp flamer configuration and force stave. The Astral Blast and Temporal Manipulation I've given to pretty much all of them. That's because you're trying to remember which squad has what, right? It's very exact. If you're doing that, if you're focused too much on that particular level of detail, you're not seeing the big picture. A lot of people can get lost in the detail, end up losing. The amount of times I've gone for a really detailed list and ended up forgetting things. So simplify things like that, because basically, you know, all of these powers we have here are helpful. I mean, let's face it, they are helpful, but you don't want to be remembering them on a unit by unit basis. Now the Xangos, these are the same as well. Now I've taken, I mean, I make mine different. The leader, the Twisted Bray, I've given him a golden axe, right? It's a special axe I made up for him, right? So I can tell him apart. In the kit, you don't really get any specific things that make him look different, so it's up to you to make your leader look different. I also give them blades, Xango blades. I don't want them shooting, I want them close assaulting. I give them an icon of flame and a bray horn. Right, so there you go for that. Now there's 2 squads of them. Because I aren't really sure, right, whether Xangos are going to be worth taking in 9th edition, other than as a cannon fodder. Because the blast thing strikes me as a good way of destroying whole squads of Xango really quickly, because they haven't got a really great save, and the protection, they're just too easy to wipe out. And now, following on, we have a Hellbrute. This one's armed with Hellbrute Fist and twin laser cannon. Basically, the problem the problem Thousand Sons have is they don't necessarily have the firepower to take out vehicles. It's all supposed to be done with smite, pecking at it to death a little bit at a time with mortal wounds. And I think that makes them really weak because they have to really focus on one particular vehicle to wipe it out, which means they can't use the powers on anything else. And then we got the Xango Shaman. He gets Smite and Weaver of Fates. He's more of a support character. Right, moving down, we got the by the way, I tend to group the Xangors, the Vortex Beast, and other things like Spawn together, right? And the Enlightened. That's one element of my attack. The pure Rubik side of things, you know, anything in Power Arm is the other side. Anyhow, we've got 5 Scarabs Occult Terminators. Now I only took these because I needed an extra elite option and I didn't have one. Otherwise I would not have taken Terminators. Right, so I'm going to have to fix that. That's one of the ways my army is going to have to change. I'm going to have to find some more elites. Maybe another Xango Shaman, maybe, or maybe another Hellbrute. Hellbrutes are, what, 130 points. Used to be 120. Xango Shaman, by the way, have gone down 5 points. Anyhow, then we've got 2 squads of 3 Xango Enlightened. So that's 6 Xango Enlightened. They are worth taking. They've gone up 9 points from 151 to 60 points. That's the Great Bow, right? The fast-casted Great Bow. That's the version I took. Of course, the Chaos Spawn. I love taking Chaos Spawn, I do. Usually, if I want to close assault somebody, I send the Spawn in first because they're incredibly difficult to gun down with Overwatch. They always get in combat. Once they're in combat, that other unit can't shoot at anybody else moving in, so you can move your granny in after that. Plus, they actually do a surprising amount of damage considering a lot of randomness involved in their assaults. I do like my Spawn, definitely. I think I've got about 6 of them. Then we got the Vindicator, Demolisher Cannon, Combi Flamer. Again, Warp Gargoyle Stratagem will work on that if it gets in combat. Defiler, now that's a battle cannon, Havoc Launcher, Twin Laser Cannon, Combi Melter, and Defiler Claws. It used to be 181 points, it's now 175 points, so it's gone down in price. But remember, you can only get a +1 on the attack, so the best hit roll you get with that is going to be free. It's not going to get any better than that. And of course, then you've got the Mutually Vortex Beast. Now, mine's lost one of its claws because during transit to this new place broke off. I can't find the claw, so he's been wounded. Fluffy! Anyway, that's just me reading out the list. We'll now move on to some other things. Right, let's go over the powers, shall we? Or the main ones, anyway. Now, Astral Blast. Now, if you're going to choose a cult, remember, right, the only thing everybody in that cult gets is the power. Everything else is specific. It's either a relic or a warlord trait. So usually, you're probably going to take a warlord trait from the main book and then just use the power. So basically, which power you want determines which cult you're in most of the time. In this case, right, I was to toss up between the Cult of Time and the Astral Blast, and what the style of play I chose for the game decided it. I wanted a more aggressive shooty type side because I was going more Rubik heavy than Xango, so that. But if I was going to go the Xangos the other way, it'd be things about teleporting across the board. That's what I would have been more interested in. But because I was going more Rubik, I was going more shooty, so it's all about destruction. So yeah, Astral Blast. Astral Blast has a warp charge value of 6, so it's dead easy to get off. Says if manifested, the closest enemy unit within 9 inches, so it'll be 15. It says invisible, so it's like it suffers D3 mortal wounds, and each unit within 3 inches of that suffers 1 mortal wound. Remember, oh yeah, the Brotherhood of Sorcerers only increases the first attack. You know, that the initial 9-inch one, so that goes up to 90. The rest of them are still just free. So that every single Rubik Marines gets that. Every single squad gets that. Anything in Power Armor gets that basically. So that's a really good defensive spell when someone's getting close to you. So that's one of the reasons why we took that one. Now as for the rest, Glamour of Zeech. This is a favourite of mine, right? Says basically it's -1 to hit. When you know somebody's going to get hit hard, you give them Glamour of Zeech. You know, and it makes it harder for them to hit. Right, what else was there? There's Zeech's Firestorm. This is an Araman power I gave. It's a bit harder to cast because it's 7. If manifested, select an enemy within 18 inches, that's 24, you know, because of the +6 for 1,000 Suns stuff. Says visible to him, roll 9 dice. The enemy says the enemy unit you selected suffers a mortal wound for each 6. You shouldn't get average should mean you should get at least 1 6. That's at least 1 mortal wound. But if you're really lucky, you could get quite a lot more than that. Right, you could say 1.5, but half isn't a 6, is it? It's half. It's a 50-50 chance of getting the second 6. Right, Temple Manipulation. Right, now this one here is it's a heal one. So you use that on. How did I give that to? Let's have a look. It should be, yeah. It's on the Rubik squad, so they can heal themselves. I can use that to heal the Rubik squads, which is basically the best place for it. Right, or each other. Right, so anyhow, what else have we got? Infernal Gaze. That's another assaulty one, if I remember right. Where the target suffers mortal wound on a 4+. Right. So anyway, you roll 3 dice to do that. So again, that's the thing. Like, what did I give Infernal Gaze to? That should have been the Exalted Sorcerer. Yeah, there he is. The one on disc. Because he goes out there, he's got three powers. Well, actually, he's got 4 powers. No, yeah, 4 powers. One of them prescient, so no, that's the wrong one. Sorry, wrong one. 3 powers here, right? I think I've had a few mistakes with these Exalted Sorcerers. Right. Oh, I didn't give the Exalted Sorcerer enough. Yeah, I'm a bit rusty though, to be honest. Anyway, the assaulty one, the one on disc, he gets Smite, Astral Power and Infernal Gaze. Right, now if I remember rightly, 2 of them are ones he gets automatically, so he's 1 shot. He could have had an extra power. Just think it's 3 for Exalted Sorcerers, or 2, I can't remember. No, it's 2. So the normal sorcerer's right, the Exalted Sorcerer on disc is missing a power. So I guess I gave Araman his power by accident. Oops. Anyway, again, it's all shooty. That sorcerer there is designed to kick ass, right? And that's what he does. The one below it less so. The one below it has 2 attack things, but it's Prescience and Glamour of Zeech. You know, so I mean, as we said, Glamour of Zeech is a -1 to hit. So he can give the Defiler +1 to hit, and cast a second power and give him -1 to hit when someone's shooting back. You see, so it's a defensive choice. Anyhow, that's what the powers mainly do. There's a Weaver of Fates here as well, which is given to, I think, Xangos usually. That's improving the saving throws, or vulnerable saving throws. I do give it to others sometimes. I remember I give the Rubik, Scarab Terminators different powers. So I can't even find him. Yeah, Weaver of Fates has gone on the Shaman. The Scarab Terminators, they've got Weaver of Fates too, so they can improve their vulnerable save if they wished. But they've got Smite and Astral Blast as well, so they're really offensive. The idea of sticking the same powers on all of them is so you get the same options. It simplifies a 1,000 Suns army, makes them easier to play. But you can use characters like I do to have specific powers in order to supply what your rest of your army needs. The Shaman is a really cheap way of getting a simple power, because he isn't very powerful. He only gets 1 power. But Weaver of Fates, I mean, you know, +1 on this vulnerable saves. You know he's a walking, talking vulnerable save buffer in the game, just leaving them buzzing around on his disc, buffing everything. Anyway, that's the powers. Let's try something else. Now we're going to talk about stratagems. Now these are on page between 84, yeah, mostly on 84, right, of the Ritual of the Damned book. Now the Infernal Fusilier, that's the Rubik and Terminator one. Allows them to shoot twice. Yoko Automaton, that's another character thing. No, that's Heroic Intervention. Rather long-winded one, that one. It allows Rubiks and Terminators to do a Heroic Intervention. Then we've got Risen Rubik. That's basically a teleport for Rubik Marines. Sorcerers and Fusiliers, what's that one? Oh yeah, if a power, you see, if you use a power of a sorcerer and get over 9, you can use it to use 1 point and heal a squad nearby. So it's a way of healing. So that's 2 ways of healing wounded characters and squads. So yeah. And then your Indomitable Foes. Oh, that improves the invulnerable save by 1. So you can use that to buff, Rubik Marines and Scarabs as well. And then you've got Immaterium, adapts to the Immaterium, which is all about, cancelling out perils with the what. Now that's the new ones, right? The older ones, the Great Sorcerer. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I even looked at this because of this COVID thing. You can attempt to manifest 1 additional power. That's a backup, really. If I've got to manifest a power, that in a game, it's usually a desperate situation. Fire Frenzy, right? That there. I think it's the Hellbrew. If you stand still, you can fire twice. Remember, mine have double laser cannons. That's 4 laser cannon shots for 1 point. So if I need that firepower, I've got it with that. That allows me to stand him still, but I'd plan on using that. At the beginning of the turn, I'd have that in mind already. I wouldn't be getting to the shooting phase and going, shall I use that? I would have already thought about that before the start of the turn. So that's what you've got to do. You've got to plan ahead. Right, and think, if you get to the point of the game and go, well, he hasn't moved, I'll use this, you've already failed, right? You need to be looking at the board at the beginning of the turn before anything's moved and thinking, I want him to fire twice, so I can use that and have a command point back and leave your Hellbrute where he is. In fact, you need to be thinking about the turn before, so you can put him in a position where he can actually get 4 laser cannon shots off. Then you've got Demon Forged. You can re-roll. This is really for the Defiler. I forgot the name of it now. It says it allows you to re-roll failed hit rolls and wound rolls. Remember, you can only have +1 once, right? Now in 9th edition, so you can't get down to 2, right? So this re-roll for wound rolls and everything is very, very handy for the Defiler. This is where these 2 here, Fire Frenzy and Demon Force, where most of my points go. Then you've got Blasphemous Machines. Now, remember it ignores penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons. Again, that is pretty good for the Defiler. Because you don't want, if you imagine, if an unmodified Defiler, right, he's already got a bad hit roll, then he moves, you have to spend a lot of points buffing the Defiler to keep him in the game. I usually move him into position and keep him stationary and just have him shoot, because my Defiler is set up as a shooting Defiler. Although you can quite easily set them up as a close assault one. Now you've got the Warp Flame Gargoyles, right? This stratagem is play the stratagem to start the fight phase. Pick a Thousand Suns vehicle from your army, but not a Hellbrute or a Helldrake, and roll a d6 for each friend or foe within 3 inches, subtracting 2 from the roll if it's a character. On a 4+, the unit suffers d3 immortal wounds. You know what that is, don't you? You get a Rhino, you charge it smack into the middle of the enemy lands, so you get within 3 inches of several units, and then you just play that. It'd be the most dangerous Rhino on the board. Seriously. Or if you find yourself in a position where you're under attack, that Thousand Suns, between that and Astral Blast and a few other things, Thousand Suns have quite a lot of really serious ways of dealing with people that get too close. I go to Cannibalistic Focus as well. That's the one where you need 3 sorcerers nearby each other. You can add 2 to the psychic test, so you can get a more powerful spell off. Again, you've got to plan for that. You've got to have your men there and make sure they're close by. Mine tend to be spread out a bit, so that doesn't always work for me. There's that beam thing. That's 2 points on the battlefield. Coruscating beam. 2 points on the battlefield, chosen by the Psyker, and you draw a line between the two. Anything it crosses gets a mortal wound, if I remember rightly. Yeah, on a 4+, get D3 mortal wounds. Right, so yeah. Then you've got Double Blast Machines, Veterans of the Long War. Yeah, add 1 to wound rolls. Says for the unit till the end of the psychic phase, or end of the phase. I don't really use that an awful lot, to be honest. A lot of these Thousand Sons infantry tags have changed. So, but there are others. A webway infiltration, you know, that's basically like an alpha strike thing. You put 2 units in the warp, or 1 to 2 units in the warp, and then you can teleport across the board at the beginning of the game. Soulflare, that's a good one. That's a spite one. That one. Someone dies, poof, cause wounds everywhere. Now you've got here, says before removing the model as a casualty, roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of the model, subtracting 2 for characters. On a 4+, says the unit being rolled for suffers a mortal wound. Now, there's a combination there, right? I can't quite remember the power, but I'm sure in Baleful Vortex there's one where you can bring one of your characters back. In fact, I think it's one of the cults. Time Flux. You can return a destroyed model, says, from the unit to the battlefield with all wounds remaining. So okay, let's just figure this out, right? We've got Cult of Time here with psychic powered Time Flux, right? Now you've got here Soulflare. Says use this when a Thousand Sons aspiring sorcerer or a cult sorcerer from your army is slain. Before removing the model, says roll a d6 for each enemy model in 6 inches, subtracting 2 from the unit if the unit being rolled for as a character on a 4+. So your Terminators or your Rubiks take a hit. You've got to take 1 casualty and they're surrounded by the enemy, right? So you get to think, okay, my aspiring sorcerer is going to die and all these Rubik Marines are going to live. So you take him off the board first. 1 point you get Soulflare, right? Then on a 4+, right, every unit around you within 6 inches of him, right, gets a mortal wound. Then on the next turn you do Time Flux and bring him back. It's got to be within 6 inches of the Psyker, right? So you've got to be fairly close. But yeah, quite a combination that. You could keep doing that every time he dies, you know. Dead, mortal wound, bring back to life. He get his own attacks as well. Maybe it's each Kairos bit Weaver doing his thing. Ooh. So yeah, anyhow, flesh change, yeah, that's when you get really low on the health on a character and you turn him into a spawn so you can still be productive. It's worth it. Sometimes it's worth it. It's a trade-off between the powers and everything else. You know, if you want to keep the powers going until he dies. Baleful Vortex, again, that's you can use his powers immediately. You know, you roll this time and then use whatever power you rolled. And Psycho Sword, it's 2 attacks for Xango, basically. Now let's just go back to Baleful Vortex, shall we? Whilst we're talking about this kind of thing. Remember, it's not really psychic powers, but I really think about them as psychic powers. Oh yeah. Now, one of my favourite tricks with the Vortex Beast is to charge it into the enemy and then just use 1, option 1, right? And it says any enemy within 9 inches of him suffers a mortal wound. If you get him into the middle of the enemy's front line, that's a lot of mortal wounds. You don't even have to roll for it. Well, you roll a d6 if you're doing 2 powers, but I pick that one, right? And I just tend to go with that. But you could also use other powers here to buff Xangos and everybody else in combat. Some of them are quite good, some of them are not quite so good. But yeah, Warp Flare, that's what I tend to like Fluffy to do. That's what I call my Vortex Beast. This is Fluffy. Put him over here anyway, so he can behave himself. Yeah, so anyhow, the powers or the stratagems themselves, you know, are quite useful, but it's important you can see the combinations when they pop up, because some of these combinations are actually quite good. Now, on the subject of how I group my forces, let's just get this down. Ahriman, he's a character on his own. He doesn't do anything other than whatever's suitable at the time. Typically, he buffs and he attacks. The Sorcerer's thing I've already mentioned, he's purely attack, and the Exalted Sorcerer without the disc, he's purely defense. He's literally just sat there supporting his troops. As for the rest, you've got all the Rubik Marines and that lot. That's part of my mainstay force. The Rubik, the Scarabs, anything that's painted Thousand Suns blue, basically. That's my main force. They're the ones I judge whether I'm winning or losing by how many I've got them left. The Thousand Suns Xangos, I usually use them to decimate front line. Quite frankly, once they get in combat, they just roll over the enemy and win me the game. But like I said, 9th edition, blast areas, I'm not so sure that's going to happen anymore. Right, so I went for shooting to see how well I can get the Thousand Suns to do. Thousand Suns and shooting isn't as good as shooting with other armies. So it's a bit of a, until they get an updated codex, they've got a bit on the back foot in the shooting department. Now I've still got Xangos there, but the Xangos, I put them down in the same area as the Shaman and the Enlightened and even the Spawn. Spawn usually dashing ahead with the Xangos. Usually the Spawn charging before the Xangos take the incoming fire. I mean, I've only ever lost the Spawn once to Overwatch, and that's when I think I was facing Tau. There were loads of incoming fire, right? But yeah, the rest of them, I had 3 of them in all, total charging in. 1 of them died, 2 of them got in, basically nullified his Overwatch after that. So yeah. So anyhow, the Xangos, Enlightened offer like firepower or covering fire. The Shaman buffs them, and the Xangos do their thing. But remember, the Mutilate Vortex Beast will be with them as well. The Mutilate Vortex Beast is put with the Shamans. Now, someone asked me on the comments, would I take 2 Vortex Beasts? If I had a lot of Xangos, yes. If I hadn't, no. Basically, if I was going to take anything else, I'd probably be taking Mauler Fiend. See, the difference between a Mauler Fiend, if you ignore the powers, the difference between a Mauler Fiend and a Vortex Beast is one is better at taking out vehicles, the other is better at taking out infantry. And they can both take out infantry, but one is better at it than the other. And it's the same with the vehicles. The Mauler Fiend has got an anti-vehicle capability, which the Vortex Beast doesn't have. So yeah, take the Mauler Fiend. Remember, the Mauler Fiend is like, it's another forge thing. It's going to have a trouble hitting as well. But yeah, anyway, that's the list there. It's not too bad. It's not specifically made with any particular strategy involved other than shooting, because it was the first game of 9th edition it would have been, and I just wanted to see how everything worked and whether I could even field a Brigade Detachment. So it's taken a while. You know, it would have taken a while to figure things out for Thousand Suns in 9th edition, because I recommend a lot of things will change. I'm expecting the Xangos to drop in price considerably. Probably Rubik's as well, actually, because nearly 100 points for a 5-man squad for a main troop type for an army, that is expensive. So yeah. Right, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. And don't forget, you can leave your comments below.